Hi, so you've just completed the processes of change questionnaire, and as the name suggests, what this looks at is the processes that you use when you're trying to make a change. You will all use some of these processes at some time, but what the research seems to suggest is that some people favour certain processes over others. And so if your trainer or coach knows what processes you favour when making a change, they can ensure that your program is tailored to that. So what you really want to be looking at here when you're looking at your scores is what are maybe the top 2 or 3 that you tend to favour, because they're the ones that you can kind of build on, because at a subconscious level that's what you prefer to use. So just to briefly go through each of them, consciousness raising, as it kind of says, it's increasing information about yourself and the problem. And we can do that by observing, keeping diaries, things like that, confronting the actual problem, interpreting the way you look at it. So consciousness raising is quite important, and certainly in my research, men in particular seem to use this quite a lot. So becoming aware about the information themselves and the problems they're facing. Self-re-evaluation is assessing how you feel and think about yourself with respect to the problem. So it's kind of how you put the two together. And we can look at kind of value clarification. So where are your values? Where do they sit? How do you actually see yourself? So kind of re-evaluating how you kind of going to approach this problem. Environmental re-evaluation is quite important, because it's really assessing how the problems affect your physical environment, you know, where you live, how you live, that type of thing. So quite important to kind of look at that. So these first 3 processes people tend to use in the early stages of change. So if some of your previous psychometric tests have said that you're in preparation, your decisional balance isn't huge, then there's a very good chance that you'll be using at least one of these. And as I say, generally consciousness raising is the favoured one. Moving on from that, we've got self-liberation. So this is choosing or making a commitment to act, and often when people are quite committed, they've really made that decision, then you get this. They have got a real belief that they can. So one of the times we often see this is New Year's resolutions. That's self-liberation. It's making that decision to, I'm going to stop smoking, I'm going to get fit, I'm going to lose weight. And you can kind of improve that, or the trainer can help people improve that through decision-making therapy, kind of looking at how you kind of make decisions and things like that. Now again, self-liberation was one that was used quite strongly by men in my research, both here and in New Zealand. So that's quite an important one. And then the next one is medication, fairly kind of obviously, so prescriptions, things like that. People sometimes want fat burners or metabolizers or something like that. So it's the use of prescribed or non-prescribed substances, maybe directed at appetite, so appetite suppressants, something like that. This isn't generally highly used, and I think most trainers would be kind of very skeptical if clients were wanting to go this route. Well, I would hope they would be anyway. But these particular 2 processes, self-liberation and medication, they come when people are strongly moving from thinking about change more towards, I'm definitely going to make a change soon. And as I say, in particular, self-liberation. We then move on to contingency management. And what we mean by this is giving yourselves rewards for achieving your goals, or moving forward, or sticking at it. Now, it could be rewarding yourself. It could be reward from your trainer or coach. It could be rewards from the family. It doesn't really matter where it's coming from, but it's giving you another reason to achieve your goal. Something that some trainers may use are what we call contingency contracts, where you as the client will commit a sum of money, and then providing you complete the 8 weeks, 12 weeks, 16 weeks, you then get that money back and you're able to use it on something that will give you some pleasure or whatever. So that's contingency contracting. But contingency management is all around reward and motivation in that respect. The next one is helping relationships. Now this, again, very strongly used by men, and I suspect possibly by women, but I've only got the data for what men, and I know that all the guys that took part in my research, both in the UK and New Zealand, they always scored this one highly. And it's being open and trusting about problems with somebody who cares. It's about having social support. It's about having peer group support. So if you've got significant other, so wife, boyfriend, girlfriend, whatever, then share with them and get their support. Hopefully they'll come on board and help you. Oh, I want to sneeze. Okay. So yeah, so that's helping relationships, so building that support mechanism. Dramatic relief is the next one, so experience and expressing feeling your problems about solutions. So it's kind of openly talking with someone, and that's most probably going to be your trainer or coach, but it could be somebody else, somebody you trust. It could be within your little group. If you're working in small groups and you trust each other, that might be the way to go. And as I say, generally we find people use these processes when they're in action, so when they're really moving forward and doing something about the problem. And of these, helping relationships seems to be the one most strongly used by individuals. We move on to the final three then, counter conditioning. So this is substituting alternatives for the problem or the anxiety related behaviour. So it could be substituting foods, it could be when you feel hungry, distracting yourselves, getting active when you feel hungry or when you're bored, something like this, all kind of distraction techniques. So basically, when something comes up that's going to be problematic, you find a way of countering it by kind of putting something else in there. So that's really what we mean by counter conditioning, and some people quite like that, having kind of something that will kind of take their mind off it. Stimulus control, kind of along the same lines, but what we're talking about by stimulus control is actually avoiding anything that elicits the problem. And what I mean by that is, if you can't go to the pub without having 10 pints and then a curry afterwards, every now and again not going to kill you. But the thing is, if it's a regular thing, or maybe it's the business lunch, or at coffee break the office always has donuts, then what we mean by stimulus control is remove the stimuli. So either you don't go to the coffee break or you don't go to the business lunch. If we're talking in the home, then you don't keep biscuits in the home, so there's not the stimulus there to kind of grab them. So it's kind of remove the stimulus, or at least control how much you're exposed to it. And then finally, interpersonal control. So that's similar kind of scenario really, avoiding people or maybe social situations that encourage your behaviour. So if we were talking alcohol, if you can't go out with friends and just have a couple of drinks, it always has to be a binge, then possibly the only way is to remove those people, that circle of friends, until such times as you have got it under control. So sometimes it's quite hard making a behaviour change, especially a lifestyle change, because you've got to kind of make a choice between your social and friends group and your end goal of getting healthier, fitter, lighter, whatever it might be. And so interpersonal control, you either need to be able to control those situations or encourage your friends to be encouraging when you are with them, or you're going to have to change your friends group. It sometimes is a very difficult choice. So that's just a quick overview of the individual tests. And as I say, what we'd be looking at is your top 2 or 3 scores, so as we know how you as an individual deal with making change and the processes that you prefer to use. Now, I've talked about different stages of change and how people use different processes. Some of you will change as we go along, others will keep the same processes throughout, so we're all kind of individual in that respect. But at least you've got a rough idea what each process is now next time you take this test. So hopefully you found that useful.